Good morning and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Good Morning Minute, where we start the day with purpose, passion, and a little bit of power. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and today's conversation is part of our special series in partnership with the Empower Her Steps virtual conference, a movement rooted in helping women rise, heal, and walk boldly into the life God has designed for them. Our mission is simple but powerful, empowering life purpose, because we believe that when a woman finds clarity in her calling, everything changes for her family, her community, and the generations to come. So friends, grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready to be uplifted as we dive into real stories, honest lessons, and bold steps towards purpose with our incredible guest. And our guest today is Shauna. Shauna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so, Shauna, why don't you just take a few minutes and introduce yourself to those listening?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Shauna, and I'm originally from the States. Actually, I was born in Washington State, but now I live in Australia. I've been in Australia for about 17 years now. I had a very challenging upbringing, and that led me into a field of social work. So I studied social work, and I was a social worker for a while in the States, and then when I moved to Australia, I became a yoga teacher, and I currently work with women as a women's embodiment mentor. I help them move into
Mhm.
that next chapter of their life. And I also work as a gene keys guide. So I help people understand some of their patterns and yeah, the
Mhm.
design that was sort of how to navigate through life effectively. So that's
Mm.
sort of the gist.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to get to know you a bit more and through our conversation. But before we jump into all of that, I'd like to start with just a fun icebreaker. And my question to you is, what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I have a hot tub, so
Oh,
it's probably the go-to. Yeah, it's probably just being outside in nature, but in the hot tub, it relaxes the nervous system, and so yeah, that'd probably be my favorite at the moment, but that can change.
nice.
Yeah,
That's nice. I like a hot bath, maybe, and then just low lights, maybe some candles, the aroma, I love it. So I get it. I get
yeah,
it. Definitely helps you
yeah,
decompress for sure.
yes.
All right, Shauna, well, we're going to jump into our conversation. I'm just going to ask you, what was the defining moment of pain or challenge in your life, and how did it impact you?
It's interesting when you ask that because I'm like, was there one moment? There were probably a lot of moments.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with a somewhat single mother. My parents got divorced before my mom actually had me, so she raised me by herself for the first couple of years, and she was quite. She was severely depressed, and she was suicidal most of my life. So she was often trying to hurt herself. She entered a homosexual relationship when I was about two. And this was like in the very early 80s when it wasn't really a thing. Like now, people are much more accepting and they understand it. But in those days, I was told to hide it and to pretend it wasn't happening. But the woman that she was in a relationship with was a narcissist who was a homicide detective, then turned trauma therapist. So
Oh.
if you take those two careers and then you add narcissist and you sort of combine that with a suicidal mother, it can get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a father who was abusive. So I didn't meet him until I was about six. And then every time I saw him, he was quite abusive. So was there one moment of trauma? There were a lot of moments, I think,
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
trauma that sort of um, yeah, that sort of changed me or impacted me or rather, back in the days I probably would have say they held me back, but
Mm-hmm.
now I realize they're my greatest gifts and I'm really grateful for all my experiences. But there wasn't really like one defining moment. There were many moments, picking my mom up off the floor when she was almost dead, or
Wow.
trying to survive when my dad's trying to strangle me, or trying to wrap my head around some of the games that were being played with my mind. So yeah, I think there's quite a few moments that I've had in my life that have really been defining moments. Have really shaped who I am. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of a generalization.
Yeah, no, and I just, thank you so much for sharing and just being so vulnerable to, just give us the story that that is where you came from. Um,
Mm,
wow. And to experience like having parents that aren't looking out for your best interests, they're very, absorbed with their what they're going through, and then with your dad being the person that he's taking out his frustrations and stuff on, and then your mom, just suicide in itself is very hard to deal with, and I can't imagine being a child, and having, you mentioned picking your mom up off the floor and going through those things. That's
mm,
horrible, and it's hard. I'm pretty sure there were moments in the throughout your story where you kind of question, what is this all for? Um,
mm,
would I be
mm.
right by asking that? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think my, growing up, I was always like, why? That was probably my, look, until a few years ago, if I'm really honest,
sure.
my constant, what has always driven me, until recently is why is this happening, why? And I would always sort of send my mind in loops around why. And I think that was probably when all of it was happening. I was trying to just understand the reasoning. I always wanted to have a reason for everything. Like there's got to be a reason why she does this, or why he does this, or and so I think actually that's what drove me into social work, and drove me into that desire to want to find the reasons why. Yeah, but at the end, like where I'm at now in my life, I'm just like, I don't have to know why. It's just, it is what it was, what it was. It is what it
Yeah.
is. And the seeking for the why was actually holding me back from the healing for me. That was my
Mhm.
experience. So, but that was what drove me, was just trying to understand people's behavior, try to understand how they get to that place in their life where they then are so enmeshed in their own stories and their own trauma that they can't see beyond that. And yeah, like I said, now I can look back with a lot more compassion. But when I was in it, it was just a lot of anger. I was very
Yeah.
angry for many, many years, and and yeah, and just trying to figure out why.
Wow. Well, and so let's talk a little bit about your healing and your growing, because at some point as you're questioning, like, and you mentioned like, this, my search for the reason led me into the social work field. I'm a social worker by trade, so I understand that. I can
Ah,
relate. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but at some point, there was going to be a place where you're like, you know what, there's a purpose behind these experiences, and kind of, in the direction that my life has taken. When did you start beginning to sense that purpose? And then what was the next step as far as the healing and the growing from it?
Mm. I think there were a lot of moments in my life like that. So the very first one was when I went to university to get a degree, right, in social work. And it was like semester one, and they said, well, you've got to go see the psychologist, because that's part of it. If you're going to go and be a social worker, you've got to be you've got to know what it's like to sit in an office and to talk to people. And so that sort of started my journey. That was 4 years. I did 4 years with this therapist. She was really amazing. It was the start of my healing journey for me. But
Mhm.
I also realized I wasn't in a place where maybe I was ready for that level of healing. It was first bringing all the stuff into my awareness, because it had been so deeply stored in my body, and I was so angry that
Mhm.
anger was sort of my front. So I think that started to unwind me. And then when like a real defining moment for me was when I moved to Australia. I went into a yoga class. I had practiced one yoga class, I think, in the States my whole, 25 years of life. And then I went to a yoga class and I came out and I was like, I fucking hated that. Oh my God, the smell and the teacher and the lights and the people breathing. And I was so agitated, but yet I wanted to keep coming back. So I kept coming back. And then there was a moment that I was on the mat and I
Mhm.
was like, I am so angry. I am so angry, and not just about being in this yoga room, next to these people, listening to this teacher, smelling the smell, feeling the heat. I'm just angry. I'm angry at everything in life. And I
Mhm.
realized that the yoga mat was like a reflection for my life. And I think that was a big turning moment for me. Like, I can
Wow.
either continue down this road of being angry and blaming everyone else for why I feel the way I feel, or I can start to own my life and start to unpack this anger and start to learn what it's like to have compassion for myself and to heal and to forgive people rather than holding on to it. So that was a big moment, but there were lots of, moments along the way, and then many moments after that as well.
Mm. Mm. You know, I understand what you're saying when you're like in the moment, you're like going through this yoga class. It's tapping into some really, really like deep down emotions, and you don't realize it because I've done this, but mine is weight training. So when I go in there and I start lifting really heavy, or I start really exerting my body to the point of exhaustion. Like I've done those, what are those, the MMA workouts and stuff like that. So when I've done those things,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
it pushes your body past the, this comfort zone, so to speak. Like it's really pulling from you, that you let your guard down without really knowing,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts pulling. Because I remember one time I was at this MMA class, and I mean, I'm doing these laps, I'm doing these, burpees and all these things. And I had to stop, and I pulled my friend aside. I said, I need to go sit down because I'm about to cry. Like I'm just about to have
Mm-hmm.
this emotional release. Um, and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" I said, and I was going through a separation at that time, a divorce at that time, but just everything too, because, I come from a childhood of trauma myself. And so everything like that coming up, and I just felt this like bubbling of emotions, and I wanted to just stuff it back in. Like I was like, I cannot have this breakdown right here
Mm-hmm.
in front of these strangers. So I understand how moving your body is also very therapeutic in those moments too. So I get it. And I love yoga. Yoga is fun. I like to stretch it out. Um, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about like how this awareness and this like, these different pivoting moments, these different kind of defining moments in your life have kind of shaped who you are today. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Mm. Well, I feel like you brought up this really amazing, this amazing point, which is sort of kind of leads into exactly what you're asking, is that for me, healing is all through the body. It's not through the mind. It comes through the body. So when you're in like you're saying, an MMA workout, or if I'm in a yoga practice, or just doing anything where the body is being challenged, the body brings up the trauma. It brings up what is there to be healed. And you can talk to a therapist all you want, and you can talk your way in circles, but you're not actually getting, a lot of times I feel, to the actual source, which it's in your body. And
Mhm.
so my healing came through my body, not just through yoga, but then working with practitioners who were like, we're just going to feel. So we have 10 hours together, and then you're just going to tell me something that upsets you, and you're just going to go in and feel it through the body, and you're just going to work with the energy of the sensation, and you're just going to allow yourself to feel all the things that you've never felt before. So that led to where I am now, is before I would either run or I would fight, or I would blame. And then I realized how to feel. And I realized if I could feel all of life, if I could feel every single thing, then it was like a superpower because nothing could defeat me because I have the capacity now to feel anything, right? So
Mhm.
my now journey, I guess, in working with people is about teaching them that it's safe to feel everything, that if I can feel the depths of my experiences, you can feel the depths of your experiences, and then that becomes, like I said, it becomes your superpower. It becomes the it becomes what I mean. Nowadays a lot of women talk about empowerment, but sometimes I feel like this word empowerment is like, let's just pretend that these things never happen and just be strong and get through it. Whereas it's like, well, no, let's actually soften, let's slow down, let's
Mhm.
feel it all. And then let's use that as our power to move forward because we can move slow and we can be with all of ourselves, not just parts of ourselves. Like my experience is that many women are good at being with parts of themselves, and then the other parts that they don't want to be with, they just pretend don't
Mhm.
exist, right? So
Mhm.
my experience and my healing has come from I can be with all the parts of myself, not just some, all of the parts, and I can have compassion for the parts that are still growing and still learning and still angry or whatever that is for me or for whoever I'm working with.
Mm. And that's so important too, Shauna, because I think like you said, the word empowerment can be misused in the sense of, yeah, it's just another word for me to deny some of the things and just like I'm just gonna bulldoze through it and things, but it really
Mm,
isn't meant for that. It's meant to address
mm,
the things and almost it's almost like for me, the word empowerment is almost a freeing word. Like I'm
mm,
emotionally, spiritually just free of any baggage
mm,
that held me back. Um,
mm,
and I'm able to step forward in my power and knowing with confidence who I am completely and
yeah.
accepting that I'm not a perfect person. I'm accepting that I have flaws, but just because I have the flaws doesn't mean that I don't have purpose in my life, doesn't mean that I don't have a calling in my life, and it doesn't mean that I can't do good in my life. So I love that you bring that up too. But another good point and talking point that you brought up too is the body does hold a lot of the trauma. The body keeps the score. I don't know if you've read that book or not, but
Yes.
it is so true, and in so many
Mm,
ways. Um, because if you're not dealing with it, and like many women, we like to just kind of stuff it down and not really worry about it and kind of be more task oriented and just get through the
mm,
day, right? We're surviving. Uh, so then the body is like, okay, let's just absorb this energy. We're going to just absorb these emotions. And it starts coming out in different ways. You mentioned being very angry, in those moments of just, I'm just mad. Like you have me sitting here, you have me breathing, you have me, trying to focus,
mm,
and I'm so
yeah,
angry. So it does. And then in other ways too, as far as like medical ways or, just different, it can impede your health as well. So I love that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So how has like all of this just kind of given you the direction and the guidance and pushed you into, because you were a social worker at one time, and so now you're not. It's a like talk about the change in that. Talk about how it's really shaped who you are today.
Mm. Well, I think I feel that I grew up understanding that you would go one direction and then that will be your thing. And what I learned is to be authentic with myself and to follow the energy where it goes. And so originally, when I came over, it was yoga teaching, and then it evolved into sort of running retreats. And then from running retreats, I actually discovered EFT, emotional freedom technique, and that was very freeing for me. I went into my body. So then I started working as a EFT practitioner. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll study NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, And so then I studied that. I worked a lot with a heap of modalities, kinesthetic, which is just going through the body. And then I realized I had this beautiful gift of being psychic. And so that then led to training to how to understand and work with things, work with
Mm.
people and understand things. So I guess your question is like, how did I end up where I am now? I just kept following where life was leading me. And now I've landed in what I would call is a combination of all those things combined together. And now I work as a mentor. So to me, a mentor is someone who holds your hand and walks next to you while you are your greatest teacher and you know
Mm.
that what's best for you. I
Mm.
just hold your hand and I just keep sort of going, oh, let's go that way. Let's look at this and just walk next to you during that period of time because what has made the biggest difference in my life is having many, many mentors who have done that and taught me to trust myself because it's easy to go to someone who can give you the answers, but I believe you're your greatest teacher and your life
Mm.
lessons are life is teaching you all the time. So it's just having someone there to also just give you a little bit of another perspective. So that's led me to where I am. And I work a lot with the gene keys. I've become very passionate about the gene keys because I feel it's the system that directs us to parts of ourselves that we don't otherwise see. And it's so beautiful. It's been so life changing for me.
Mm.
So I don't know if I actually answered your question, but I kind of took all of the things in life,
Yeah.
combined them into one, and that's where I am now. Is I work as like a mentorship, and I give people I work with them in their gene keys. So
Okay. Talk a little bit more about Gene Keys because I've never heard of that. So I'm
yeah,
interested, to know a
yeah,
little bit
yeah,
more.
yeah. So Um, it's a bit of a complicated system, but the easiest way that I can explain it is it's where the sun is, it's where the moon is, it's where Venus is and Mars is, and where all
Mm.
the planets sit on the day that you're born, at the time that you're born, and the
Okay.
location that you're born. Okay, so it's
Uh-huh.
it's similar to astrology. If you know a little bit about human design, it's the guy who discovered the gene keys, Richard Rudd. He studied under Ra, who designed human design. It's also based on the I Ching, which is a book of changes. It's Chinese. It's about this 64 hexagrams. So the gist of it is you get these keys that
Mm.
are your keys based on when you were born at what time. And these keys will tell us what your gifts are, what your shadows are, and what your highest potential is. And in
Mm.
many different areas of your life. So start with 11 keys and I'd look at the keys and I'd say, okay, Angelina, you will struggle with this over and over and over again until you accept that you're going to struggle with this. And then as soon as you accept that that's going to be your struggle, then you can lean into your gift. And this is your gift. This is the gift that you're here to bring to this world. But you must first know that this is your shadow and you must accept that. So every time that shadow comes up, you keep watching it and you keep observing it and you keep contemplating it. And then you go, without this shadow, I wouldn't have this gift. So, see, we look at all these keys and it goes really deep into relationships. We can see what your
Mm.
relationship triggers are. So we can see what your defense pattern is and when they were designed in your life. And I just feel like it's a map to these deeper layers of people and there's a system there. Instead of me just going, okay, well, and if it's not my opinion, it's just there's this system that says that this is happening. And so a lot of people can really feel confident in that because it's not my opinion, it's not someone's opinion. And the more
Mm.
that you accept it, it's called the gene keys because it's a genetic code. So it's based on science and amino acids being released in your DNA. So when you accept your shadow, it changes your DNA and it changes the structure of your internal.
Mm.
So it's like you're changing your genes, you're transforming your life, you're basically unlocking light within yourself. And I think there's
Mhm.
nothing like that in the world that I've discovered at this point yet. So I love to work with
Yeah.
it. And I find it quite freeing and beautiful.
Wow. Well, that's that, I didn't know that, but I am familiar with like kind of the astrology part of that. Um,
Mm.
because I like to read on everything. But that's interesting. So that's awesome. So too, and I also look at that because it is true when I'm coaching, going back into the thing that kind of got you stuck in an emotional chain link or something where you're stuck and you can't anything that you're trying to tap into because of being stuck in that area of whatever, uh, it keeps repeating in the relationships you're in, or just
Mm.
just in life. So when you go back and you accept that this is something that you experienced, right? It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. Um, but understanding that that did happen to you, and then release yourself from the emotional bondage, so to speak, then you're it's almost that acceptance and that freeing moment. And then you can also be more aware how you kind of implement it in your life so that you can change
Mm.
those things, so you can change the direction of your life, so you can change outcomes in your life. So
Absolutely.
I like that. Shauna, if someone were maybe in that position where they're sitting on that yoga mat and they're realizing, man, I'm really angry. I am really angry. I don't, I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what this is. Uh, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Mm. Go to someone who has a life that you want to live and
Mm,
ask them some questions. Yeah, because it's like it, we're here to be in a community, and we're here to support each other through life. And my perspective is that if you find a practitioner that you feel that can help you, make sure that she or he lives a life that you want to live. Like, don't go and take advice from someone that doesn't have a life that they love. Like, if you want to move from anger and you want to get out of it and you want to move to a happy, joyful life, then find someone who has that and who knows something about it, and start sort of asking questions. And I think the
yeah,
first step is just to get curious as well, because I think as humans, or I feel as humans, we're very quick to judge ourselves, and judgment does not create a life you love. You cannot beat the crap out of yourself and think you're going to create a happy life by being mean to yourself. So you just got to go, wow, the anger is there. I see that. I witness that. I feel that. And then start reaching out to people who you feel like might have had that experience that you've had, or you feel like they might be able to assist you. So that's probably my biggest suggestion.
okay, wonderful. Well, and then my next question to you, Shauna, is now that you've learned so much about yourself, what does living with purpose look like for you now?
Mm. Following the energy. So life can look a certain way, and then all of a sudden there's a pull within your soul that says go this way, and you're like, but the spreadsheets don't work out and it doesn't make sense. And I just think, if there's a pull within your soul, go that direction. It's a pull for a reason, and it's a pull
Mm-hmm.
towards you for a reason. But so often we just push that down. So what I'm learning and what I continue to learn about my purpose is, my purpose is for me to follow whatever it is that I desire, or whatever it is that I feel called to do, as long as it's in the highest alignment for the greatest good and comes from love. That's for me my
Mm,
purpose.
wonderful. Okay. And then as we start kind of closing out our conversation today, Shauna, I do have a question that I ask all my guests, and it's one of legacy and impact. So if today were your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
Mm. Being authentic, that what I say is is what I say. I live my life,
Mhm.
and I live my life authentically. What you see is what you get. There aren't any secrets, nothing to fear, nothing to hide.
Wonderful. And then my last question, Shauna, is if you could leave maybe one bit of truth or maybe a word of encouragement with someone who's still trying to figure out their life purpose, what would it be?
You are your purpose. You. You being you is the purpose. Um,
Mhm.
Stop thinking that your purpose is outside of you. It's you and your 30,000 billion cells that make up you. You are the purpose. So we want you. We want the version of you, whatever that looks like. That is the purpose, you being you.
Oh, and that is so profound. I want to take a moment to just kind of resonate with that a little bit because it's so true. Because it all starts with you. Any
Mm,
influence that you have outwardly in the world, it's going to start with you. It's gonna begin with you. And so you mentioned, whatever that looks like for you is just being your true authentic self. And in order to be your true authentic self, you have to get to a place where you have accepted the things that you've done. You've kind of taken ownership of your story and you become responsible of your story, and then you start making those changes that you want to see in your life. And if you don't do that, then you will influence whoever you come across, whether that's a
mm,
positive or a negative influence. You're still going to leave an imprint in that moment with someone. And like I said before, people don't remember what you say or what you do, but they definitely remember how you make them feel. And so
yeah.
just be mindful of that. So I love that you mentioned just be you. You are your purpose. And so that's beautifully
Mm.
said. Um, Shauna, if someone wanted to get in contact with you and work with you, how can they connect?
Mm. The easiest way is my website. So it's just shaunahawkes.com. And yeah, then they can just navigate there and they can see if they resonate with what's on there. I do a few different things, but even if you just want to get in touch, you can just send me a message and we can start the conversation. So that's probably the easiest way.
Wonderful. Well, Shauna, I want to say thank you for sharing your heart, your story, and your light with us today. Conversations like this remind us that purpose isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, growing through the things that we go through, and understanding that every step matters. Here at the Good Morning Minute and through the Empower Her Steps movement, we believe every woman has a calling worth discovering and a voice worth using. So, friend, wherever you are today, remember your purpose is powerful and you're not walking alone. Until next time, keep rising, keep trusting, keep walking boldly into the life God has designed for you. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.